But now sasa uko situation where uko na family, uko na watoto.
It's keeping up with the Joneses.
It's not necessarily the Joneses. It's more of the Kamaus and the Njoros.
Si Joneses kwa sababu
because Joneses unaenda juu. Unaenda juu. Hapa you're trying to keep up with your social
your
socialized.
Pali ulikuwa where you started. That's trying to keep up.
With us looking from outside, it's easy to say kama uwezi ku afford nyumba Nairobi West, like nenda Kayole ama nenda. It's easy for us to say from a distance
because we're looking from outside.
Yeah. But the social realities back home, they do not.
Uko na social credit ya ku maintain bana.
Yes, hiyo social credit wezi kuona toka Nairobi West alafu unaenda Kayole. The topic about money is very interesting.
It's kind of sensitive.
When it comes to Kenyans. Because there's two schools of thought. There's a school of thought where money conversations are avoided, tukule tu leo, let's just enjoy what we have today and figure out what's going to come tomorrow. And then, kuna ujuaji pia, where people are getting involved in get-rich-quick schemes. Mtu atakwambia, kuna deal hapa, kuna mpango. If you get into this, anywhere within a year, you've tripled your money.
Magota.
That's why schemes kama ile ya Quail, they tend to become very popular in Kenya.
Quail eggs.
Ingilia hii biashara ya Quail, we umeomoka. And you'd find even very smart people, like falling for that and getting into it. And then you see the other thing is that in Kenya, I've also noticed people will speak in generalities. Like mtu atakwambia biashara ya matatu iko na pesa sana. But now when you want to get to the details of it, you start using acronyms like ROI. Then mtu anakwambia, we wacha hizo hapo. You have to get in to know. You have to get in to understand. So there's that. People will, watakuchocha sana. Ati, if you buy hii ploti sijui sehemu gani, within a year, hiyo kitu ime triple value.
And you know what's interesting is that plotty maybe it's being compared with something else in another area that may have certain returns. And you see, so the speak is going to be the generality of if you buy in and you buy a plot, you're going to make money. Now, somebody doesn't break down certain things to you. Because unajua saa zingine kuna wase wako na ploti na si ploti walinunua. Wali inherit. Yeah. Which means ROI yao at that point ni zero.
Yeah.
Right?
No ROI, like they don't have
no, what I'm saying when I say the investment in
is zero.
Yeah. They are already ahead of the game.
Yes.
So sasa jamaa nasema, let me build my ile nyumba waga ineto ile nyumba ya gorofa alafu chini kuna maduka. You understand what I'm saying? Na najenga hiyo. Sindio? Then rent inaanza kudonjo. Now remember, if alichukua loan, assuming alichukua loan ama alipata kado, these things may come back faster for him than mtu alienda kanunua plot.
Akanunua cash.
Then akaanza kujenga.
From scratch, yeah.
So there are certain things that always get left out, and you have to really go sit down and do the nitty-gritty. And then now comes in our diaspora. Hapa ndio sasa, because we are dealing with foreign exchange, and that just throws the math off completely, totally. And people don't seem to understand it until it's almost broken down. You're given a karatasi brand and you're told, okay, this is how much money you put in, and you put it in the year 2000, and this is how much it was. Go ahead, Mika.
Mimi nataka kuuliza tu swali. When we talk about money,
yes.
And at least as we talk about, tutoke hata kwa investments na mambo yote inaendelea, right? Let's bring it down a few levels.
Okay.
How do we talk about money in terms of family terms, right?
Family?
Do we talk about the properties that we have in inheritance, what you plan to do? Do we talk as with your spouse? because ikifika historia though Kenya uko ni historia nani na benefit from nani, atuongeange juu ya historia. How financially literate are you? When you start talking to somebody, you ask them how financially literate, you ask them about their debt, you ask them about the investment, you ask them about, because isn't it to affect the future when you're starting out in our age pale tuko sisi sasa.
We're not taught to talk about
wengi
money.
wetu tumeoa ama tunafikiria kuoa, na hata kama tumeoa tuko na watoto wenye tunafaa kuachia vitu. We start looking at the fact that most of us, we are nearing retirement. We are closer to retirement than we were to starting a new job. Sahii tukifutwa job, kupata job ni hard kwa sababu tunaonekana nikaa tumezeeka, skills zetu za kitambo. We are not that marketable in the market. So how are we ensuring that our tomorrow years are going to be softer, are going to be better? When you're looking for new jobs, how are we ensuring that you're not leaving money on the table? These are the conversations, like, as people, do we talk about them? When you talk to your friends, do you sit down and talk about money? Do you tell them about how, hey guy, do you have a trust? Do you have this? How have you left money by yourself? Because tunakaribia kukufa. Siulizana kama tuko na wills.
Now,
we kwa nini unaua watu?
Hapo pale umefika Mika, kwanza ni mbali sana.
We kwa nini unaua watu? Si uanze tu hapa pale pa watu ongea ndani ya nyumba about finances. Hapo ndio pali.
Hapo Mika pale umefika ni mbali sana. And I think the issue, like na Kenya is that it's a very subsistence economy, meaning ile chapa mtu anapata ndo ile chapa anatumia. And then what exaggerates that subsistence, it's a class-based economy. Sasa because I grew up in Nairobi West, and hiyo ndo class nilikuwa naishi, but now because of the economy imeenda, I can no longer afford to live in Nairobi West. So it's not an easy thing socially kumigrate na kudowngrade kwenda a different place where rent might be cheaper or cost of housing may be cheaper because of that social stratification. Now, because of that social stratification, you're kind of forced to keep up with the people, not even necessarily going up, but with the people within the social class which you are raised in. The benefit si tuko nayo is that we were able to exit and come to the US, and we were not there as our earning years were going up. We're not there within that social stratification. Because hapo ndo mnaona watu wana divide. When you're young, like you're right out of high school, there's kind of equality. Kila mtu ana hustle, either you're going to Kole or you're hustling. But now when years are going by, you're seeing people divert. The ones who got good jobs, wale bado wana struggle. You're seeing some people buying cars, some people buying houses. Kunaanza kuwa na hiyo separation that's active. So with us looking from outside, it's easy to say, kama wezi ku afford nyumba Nairobi West, like nenda Kayole ama nenda. It's easy for us to say from a distance
because we're looking from outside.
Yeah. But the social realities back home, they do not.
Uko na social credit ya kumaintain bana.
Yes, hiyo social credit wezi kuona toka Nairobi West alafu unaenda Kayole. Na by the way, sometimes Kayole inaweza kuwa hata ni nyumba ambayo unaweza ku afford kununua, which is cheaper, but then because of that social credit unaona
hata Kayole ni mbali. Ambia mtu atoke Nairobi West aende kuishi Kitengela, mtakosana.
Ya kwanza kwa vumbi.
Mtakosana
kwa vumbi. Hiyo place iko na vumbi
ama taronga.
Na guess what? Ile rent nilipa Nairobi West kwa kabed sita. Kwa Nairobi West, ile rent nilipa Nairobi West kwa kabed sita ama kwa one bedroom. Sema kwa one bedroom nilipa 30,000. Kitengela atapata apartment kubwa ya 3 bedroom na iko na servants quarter na hiyo 30,000.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Na hata hiyo 30,000 inaanza kuwa elusive sasa, zinaendelea zikipanda. So, because of those social realities, people end up making financially harmful decisions. But now sasa uko situation where uko na family, uko na watoto.
It's keeping up with the Joneses.
It's not necessarily the Joneses. It's more of the Kamaus and the Njoros.
Si
not the
Joneses kwa sababu
Because Joneses unaenda juu. Unaenda juu. Hapa you're trying to keep up with your social
with your
Sako
where
peers.
you're socialized.
Pali ulikuwa, where you started.
Yeah.
That's trying to keep up.
No, think about
no.
if you grew up in Umo
Uh-huh.
na street cred yako iko Umo, are you moving to Jericho? Just ask yourself that. Jericho si mbali sana na Umo. But are you moving to Jericho? Because how you move Jerry, you've moved a social strata down.
Umejishukisha, yeah.
Yes.
No, the idea is to move to.
Ukitoka Umo,
Mayalo.
The idea is to move. The idea is to move to
ukitoka Umo unataka kwenda Buru.
Buru.
Yeah.
Ukitoka
from
Buru,
unaenda?
unaona, ukitoka Buru unataka uingie at least Wayakiwe, alafu uingie Kilimani.
Sasa hiyo ni Joneses. Hiyo ni Joneses sasa.
That's what I'm saying.
No, si
Gathe, hiyo ni
no, no,
Joneses.
no.
Gathe, hiyo ni
Joneses.
But
Joneses.
those are
Hiyo ni
steps.
Joneses.
Those are steps.
It's
though.
Kilimani si
No,
Joneses
they're
bana.
steps. They're steps.
Again.
Kilimani
it's
si
still
Joneses.
No, from Umo. From Umo, hiyo ni Joneses, Mika.
Bro, come on.
Wacha nikwambie from Umo, ndio nakwambia ni hierarchy.
Yeah.
Ukitoka Umo,
Yeah.
unaenda Buru.
Oh, pole
Unaona?
pole.
Ukitoka Buru,
Yeah.
unaingia Wayakiwe. Unajua Wayakiwe ni ile Kangemi na karibianga Westland ile.
Ah,
Si
okay.
Westland, but
Usitaje
inakaribia-
Kangemi sana, usitaje Kangemi sana.
ama
Unaguza
Naivasha
mlima.
Road, Naivasha Road, unaona, like ama Ngong Road iko nini saidi ya Jamu, like iko karibu na Kilimani,
Dago,
but si
Dago,
Kilimani,
Dago.
unaona, like unachungulia hivi Kilimani, like unaweza kunusa hewa ya hiyo zip code, alafu kidogo unatoka hapo unaingia Kilimani, alafu kitoka Kilimani unaingia Lavi Kile, alafu kitoka Lavi Kile unajaribu kuemtukare, unaona, you know. But the thing is, most people hiyo ladder wishi Kilimani pale umejipanga sana, but watu wengi tu wajipeleka kwa force.
But unaona
Same
problem
way-
ya hiyo ladder ni nini, Mika? Problem ya hiyo ladder ni maybe your career is progressing, income inapanda, but vile income inapanda, expenses nazo zinapanda, which means that savings rate yako iko very low. So hapo ulitoka Umo, ukatoka ukaenda Buru. Umo to Buru, that's not a bad transition. But now sasa from Buru unataka kwanza kuelekea, umesema Wayakiwe
With the Joneses.
ama kwenda Westi.
No matter
Yeah.
how you
Across the
dissect
river.
it,
No, si
Across
West,
Nairobi River. Across Nairobi River.
my friend. No matter
West
you
ni
dissect it,
100%, hapana, si
Yeah.
West.
no matter you dissect
Yeah.
Ni kuletoka Wayakiwe ama Naivasha Road.
Okay.
Ama kina Race Course huko, kina Ngong Road nini, kina Jamu.
Hapana,
Hizo-
sasa umetoka nyumba ulikuwa unalipa rent Ngiriashu, and then sasa unaenda hiyo progression, umeenda you're going to a place where unalipa rent ya
unafika 30 Salasa huko.
no, Salasa ni hiyo labda ni Nairobi. Salasa, Kilimani huwezi pata rent ya Salasa unapata rent
No,
wapi?
by the time ufike Kilimani.
Yeah.
No, the thing with Kenya is this. Shida kubwa na Kenya ni pressure ya watu wengine, cause ukiishi Eastlands ama uishi Thika Road unaweza ishi tu fiti sana, ama Mombasa Road kuna sehemu zingine unaweza ishi fiti sana, na unaweza ishi maisha mengine poa sana, like quality of life is good. And actually for me, I think living out in an estate is better than living in Kilimani, having to raise my apartment, but unalipa 60-80 90 kwa apartment, na mmega hivi na ziko na kila mtu kuanzia scammers wa Nigeria nini everything, but then hiyo 90 ukienda place Ruiru kina Membli yuko napata nyumba kubwa.
Now unaona I think the problem that's there, like for me myself, learning from my parents, especially like learning from my mother, si tukigrow up nilikuwaga nashindwa, because me I will always say, like I'm not one of those people who will sit here and pretend that nimetoka mbali. Unajua hapa diaspora kuna watu wengi wanajifanya, kuna watu ambao wanajifanya wametoka mbali, but reality hakuna mbali wametoka. So me I can never pretend that you know, like I struggled when I grew up, ama sijui tulikuwa tupate chakula or nilienda shule bila via. I never went through that experience.
Hiyo ni ukweli.
Yeah, my first struggle was here in the US nilipokuja kuishi America. Hiyo ndo ilikuwa struggle yangu ya kwanza. But one thing that I think, you know, like even with all the finance that I learned is I learned from my mother. Mimi nilikuwa nikishangaa, you know, like cause my mother progressed very well in her career. Sasa nilikuwa nashangaa like all the people she was with walikuwa wanaenda wanaanza ku-upgrade my neighborhood. Si tumeishi Nairobi West for as long as I can remember. Some I used to wonder, kwa nini hata pia sisi hatu upgrade? Kina fulani wameenda kuishi Lavi, kina fulani wameenda kuishi sijui Garden Estate, kina fulani wameenda kuishi wapi. But now later on, now looking at my mom and her peers in retirement is when I am appreciating.
No difference.
Yes, I'm appreciating the choices that that she made, because ye kwanza ye alikuwa gahana hii kiu ya kutaka ku-upgrade neighborhood. It was just never ever, you know, like her thing. Nairobi West kulikuwa na, there was a large Muslim community, kulikuwa na Waswahili wengi. So yeah, hiyo kitu, you know, like it was just never in her mind. So right now is when I'm starting to appreciate hii issue ya kununua sijui V8. That was just never, it was never a thing at all. But now like sasa ukiangalia and making those comparisons is when unaona kuna difference kubwa. You know, like the people who upgraded fast kuenda kuishi in renting in very expensive places, you're starting to see them struggle, you know, like in the retirement age. Now your retirement simbali, I know people sometimes look at themselves as young, hii retirement iko mbali haiwezi fika, but no, it is very, very, it's much closer.
Retirement imefika.
It is, if you're in your 40s, it is way closer than you imagine, than you believe, than you want to see. Hapa Esther Molusa anasema on YouTube, we avoid talking about death and only changa money after one has died, instead of organizing life
But
insurance to deal with
very
funerals
right.
and airlifts of bodies.
I think you have
She's very right. We can start benevolent funds. Na hizi benevolent funds zinakwamba kusaidia in case we have a death. Tunajua tu what with the process to do. Boom boom na tunaenda. Quite simple, quite easy. Like a funeral is very expensive.
Aya, we have a call hapa. Wacha kwanza tupike.
Wacha tuone kama huyu caller atachukua simu. 2059, thank you.
Only JJ.
2059, thank you.
Hey, good evening. Bless up on yourself.
Okay, tell us name and where you're calling from.
Afro-Jamaican man in Toronto, Canada here.
Wagwan, Breton.
Hey, Wagwan,
Yo, Afro-Jamaican, we have already...
there.
When we come to watch World Cup games in Toronto, I've already booked a space in your basement. So don't say I didn't tell you. It's out in the public. It's out in the public. So,
I hear that.
Yeah.
I'll make sure I'm around when that happens.
Yeah. So don't put us in the garage.
You said something earlier.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, man. You guys will be taken care of.
Okay. All right. Talk to us.
You guys are taken care of. Yeah, so you said something earlier, but then I'm trying to follow. My Swahili is getting a little better, but I'm not that good yet. My translator is a little bit slow. But you were talking about people teaching kids about like money and finances.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've come across a few situations in Kenya. One person was asking for an iPhone 13 or 14, like $1,500 US. And I'm like, you know, you can buy land for that money, but it never occurred to them to invest that way. They wanted the phone. And these are the same people I see in the club spending sometimes 10,000 shillings, 15,000 shillings on a bottle of wine. And I know they're not making that kind of money. So I think there is a deficit when it comes to financial smartness or financial responsibility that I see in Kenya among some young people. You know, I found a money market fund and I was telling a couple of friends about it and they've never heard about it. And I'm like, I'm in Toronto, Canada, and I'm hearing about these Kenyan financial houses that paying you 12-13% per annum, um, and paid. You can get the dividends monthly from it as well, and they've never heard of any of this. So there's a disconnect somewhere, and I don't know how that's going to get fixed because there's definitely opportunity there, but they'd rather go party it out or buy a new iPhone or some new sneakers or something. And it's funny, it's the same thing here with the same age demographic as well. All the education, all the access they can possibly get at their fingertips, but they waste money. And the first check when they get a job is they go get an expensive car that they're paying $600-700 a month for. It's crazy. So it's not just Kenya; it's everywhere.
Now, you mentioned something very interesting, and now thinking back, Nairobi especially, and this might be true also in other cities, I'm not sure. There's a big thing about perception. I have to drive a certain kind of car. I have to go and spend money in a certain type of establishment. That thing is big and has destroyed so many people. Because think about it. If, for example, you're working a job where you're earning, let's say, 100,000 shillings a month, and then you're going to an establishment in a weekend where you said you're buying alcohol worth 10,000-15,000 shillings, yet you're on a 100,000 shilling a month salary. There's something within your budget that's definitely getting hurt.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
And I think this has to start being, people have to start being groomed from a very early stage on the fact that you can just eat what's enough for you today, and this will be better for you in the near future and in the future. So I think that need for instant gratification is really what has kept a lot of people behind. Very, like people who you believe are well-to-do, and you're like, wow, like how is it that such and such is being evicted? Like they're now asking for money. Like even these influencers, I don't know whether you follow Kenyan influencers, Afro-Jamaican, but even these influencers,
I'm a Nairobi Gossip Club.
So you see there is some of these influencers, they actually sometimes make so much money, like working with certain brands, but all of a sudden you hear that they're being evicted, or they're out there asking people for money. They've spent all the money that they made. So I don't know, maybe Afro Jamaica, what would your advice be, like with yourself having a family, someone who's raising a family, and they're looking to raise their kids in a way that they will look at money in a certain type of way? Afro Jamaican.
So for the first thing, I explain to my kids that money is a tool, and you can use a tool or you can abuse the tool. We sit. There's a couple books here too. There's one, investing for kids. You sit there and read it. I'm gonna explain to them. Listen, let's say I give you your allowance and it's $10 a week. All right, at least 50% of it should go in your bank account right away for savings. That's your savings, and you can use maybe the rest of it and go buy your candy or whatever you need to buy. But don't spend all of it in a week. You need to take a little time over time. Just don't go rush for the instant gratification. If you want a PlayStation or you want something, you're gonna have to save for it. I'm not gonna buy it for you and then have, you know what I mean? Take your time. You need to work for it. Go wash the dishes, go cut the grass, whatever, and let them know that you have to also earn money. Money does not come free. Anytime somebody offers you free money, run.
Wow.
It's never free. So I don't think people really talk to their kids about money. My parents never spoke to me about money. My father is one of the most careful people I know. He would probably put the money under a mattress. He's not a risk taker. So everything I learned, I had to learn as an adult. And because of that, I felt it put me behind. Whereas I am making sure my kids will not have that problem.
Let me say this. I think and that is something that we are learning as we progress in life. Because we are the generation that's, and I think me and Ali and Mika and Omosh have discussed this. We are the generation that has been caught in between.
In between, yeah.
And in between
The past and the
transitions.
future.
The past and the future. We are the ones who are still have something in the past,
Yes.
present, and in the future. Case in point, like now, when we immigrated, when we came here, most of us were like about 19, 20, whatever. So now we have been removed from where we were. We have come to a new place, a new world, new environment. There are new rules, new regulations, new entanglement. There's a whole bunch of engagement that is happening here that we were not only were we not prepared for, but we were never taught, because they themselves could not even have known what we were coming to.
Yeah.
Maybe what they've been told. So it has been baptism by fire. So it's like we are going as we make up. We are going as we try to stitch up.
Yeah.
Like even with kids, it's something that we never, what we knew growing up is not what we're experiencing with our kids, because guess what? We grew up in a majority, let's say, not even majority, it was fully black. Maybe you might have one or two pointees or whatever. But now here you're having many people, a mixture or whatever. So that is also an adjustment. And, to Afro-Jamaican's point, and this is something that our parents, not that they did not fail, but it is something that we can identify as we were not taught. But now we have to talk to our kids about investments or whatever. And it's based on what not only either we have learned, if we have been burnt, quote unquote, don't do this, or let us secure the, like even this thing of trying to talk about avoid broti. Let us look at index funds or whatever, because that is something that many of us have known for the longest time. So introducing something that is new, like, no, wait a minute, hold on, what is this?
Yeah.
We don't know it, but it's taking time. But unfortunately, in as much as we learn about it or whatever, we still default to what we know.
And that's why diasporans are one of the easiest populations, especially
Absolutely.
the US diaspora is one of the easiest population to scam.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because every year or every other year or every 6 months or
There's
whatever,
always a new scam.
there's a new land scam,
Yes.
building scam or whatever. People could be genuine. Maybe. We just don't know that. But we know people who have been, especially in these big groups.
But you know where the biggest blind spot has been outside, like maybe not investing in the right places or spending a lot. The biggest blind spot has been on career guidance. That's true. Because careers, most people are employed. Your career is your biggest wealth making tool. And between 20 to 60, you have a whole 40 years where you're working to earn a living.
Yes.
So now, most of us, and myself included, and that's why it is important to acknowledge where blind spots have been. I've just been moving, not knowing, of course, until, like I started getting coaching from Tabitha, that, by the way, this is how things are supposed to go. Did you know that you can double your pay within less than 5 years? Most people don't think like that. As long as you have your job, you're getting that annual raise, whether it's 3% or 5%, if you're lucky, you're okay.
But let's add to that.
Yeah.
Part of the reason is because, and I think she did mention this a while back, is that we are afraid to disrupt
Ali?
The norm.
The norm. Yes.
Yeah, let's hear from Afro-Jamaican before we let him go. Afro-Jamaican.
Yeah. So what you said right there about being afraid is such a real thing. I have been in my job since 2013. Before that, I had a job for 3 years. Before that, I had a job for 10 years.
Wow.
I stay in my companies.
Wow.
My wife made about 30% less than what I made when I started in 2013. Between 2013 and now, my wife makes twice my annual paycheck. But she
Damn.
doesn't stay at one company.
Wow. That is
She doesn't stay. And the older me is afraid. I'm comfortable. I'm just like, I get paid all right, and I kind of whenever I wake up, and whenever I go to work, I go to work. But she is like, no. The minute they miss a beat with her, resignation, find another job, and she doubles my salary now.
That is a
And I'm
mind-blowing
like,
example.
these younger
That is mind-blowing.
these younger people are, yeah. Sorry, man. Go ahead.
No, I was saying that is such a mind-blowing
crazy,
example.
damn.
Like that right there is an example that Tabitha needs to hear, and she might have a conversation with you, because it is what it is. Like I'm going now close to 9 years in the company I'm working for, and yes, we do get to that comfort zone whereby I'm comfortable here, of course, until the day you get laid off. Because when it comes to layoffs, if they need to do it, they'll do it very quick, and you'll carry your small bag, your little belongings, and you'll go. And
I think
sometimes people are not prepared for that.
And I think also, I think there's a time we even had Lavera on the show, and we're talking
Yes.
about just career and instilling, like now, for example, our kids, trying to get them into internships
That will put them in the right place.
exactly,
Yes.
and it's an encouragement. And we also have to figure out a way to sift through, like, I wanted to say this a while back. I think some of us Kenyans usually have a problem, and the problem is we have a hard mentality. So Ali discovers that you can learn programming using that flask,
Yes.
and the guy is making 100,000. Everyone else is gonna go into that flask and learn
Yeah.
how to program,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Until it is over exhausted or
Saturated, yeah.
saturated or whatever. So then Mika comes up with a process. Let's say, you know what, you can learn to do this and do this, and this is gonna earn you 500,000. Everyone now starts doing that. There's a hard mentality, because, and the reason I bring this up is because, like in 2008, there are guys who just started doing doolies.
Yeah.
Everyone and their mother started doing doolies.
Hiyo story ya duli huko imekuchokesha sana.
That's what happened. So doolies, watu walianza madoolies. Guys got out loans and started doing doolies. People who have never done doolies. So for people who don't, doolies are those things that transport cars. Unanunua gari, unaenda unachukua gari, unaenda to deliver. Everyone and their mother started doing doolies. 2008, did it happen?
Crash. Yeah.
People had even bought 2 or 3 cars. Wakafunga chapter.
Yeah. So to me, I think the biggest thing is, especially if you have kids who are in high school or in college and are gonna enter in the workforce soon, it's setting up in the right place, because your career is gonna be your biggest wealth builder unless you become an entrepreneur. And you see, the thing is, yes, we sometimes talk about entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship is not easy. But you can make entrepreneurship easier if you're not depending on your enterprise for your subsistence. Because entrepreneurship becomes difficult if that business you have is what you're depending on for your day-to-day survival. You will not be in a good position to make the right. You'll not be in a good position to make the right decisions to sustain your business, because if you're depending on it for survival, you're not looking at the long game. You're looking at the short run. So I think that
right now.
Yeah, you're looking at right now. So I think that becomes a problem. But when you set yourself up, and part of the reason why I personally advocate for starting early, like especially if you have kids who are now of age. They can start at whatever level they are. The earlier you start, the faster it will get you to reach $1 million. I know $1 million seems like a lot of money to a lot of people, but on a salary of $60,000, if you're getting started and you're still living in your parents' house, your annual expenses are not going to be more than $10,000 a year if you're still living in your parents' house. So that's something you can take advantage of. Start just loading up on your savings early inside index funds. It's a modest return, and I know Tabitha has talked about people sometimes not being willing to risk to go to other places where you might find higher returns. What I say, when you start early and you get those modest returns, you're now in a good position now to take a risk. Imagine if you're 27 years old and you have $500,000 in savings. Then you're in a good position to go into entrepreneurship and you have a cushion. But then if you're 43 years old and then you're starting entrepreneurship, you have a family to feed. So now you're looking at this business, it must succeed, because if it doesn't succeed, it means your kids are not gonna eat, or your family is gonna suffer. So yeah, a couple of comments were coming in here as we were talking. Stephen JJ says, kuna wengine wetu sisi ni mayatima, lakini now we are having issues with property. Apparently the house comes up for sale, you don't have the cash, your siblings come up with the money. Once a sibling who was helped passes away, kumbe hiyo usaidizi ilikuwa alone. And then I'm gonna come back to Kenya Mashinani's comment. Kenya Mashinani has an interesting comment, but I'm gonna come back to that. Washeke nasema, if possible, one needs to change a job every 5 years, especially when starting out. I totally agree that that's the fastest way to increase your salary.
I think 5 years is
5 years
generous.
is becoming long. It's even becoming long.
I think 5 years is 3 years.
Yeah.
Because the way things are working, the way things are moving, and even especially say if you're in tech, then you end up also being a little bit behind. If you're because for 5 years, if you're stagnant, your people are not moving. That's why I'm saying like 3 years. But 3 years is actually
3 years is a good time.
3 years is a good time.
Wacha nikwambie,
Go ahead, Mika.
ukipata kazi ingine hama, wacha kungoja sijui 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Ukipata kazi ingine hama.
But Mika,
There's nothing like lawyers. Somebody who has been loyal to a company and somebody who has been disloyal to a company. I've tested both. I highly recommend being disloyal.
I agree.
Mika, we understand that, but the problem is sasa now hapo kwa hiring managers, au wanaangalia nasema jamaa atatuhepa.
So they don't want to bring
kama
resume iko na 9 months here.
Unasema ulikuwa consultant.
Yeah, that will get you by. That will get you by. Yeah.
So hapa pia Washeke anasema it's the same thing happening in the Pacific Southwest, Washington and Oregon. Kenyans have flocked there. So the same thing to the point that some are making losses. And then hapa going back to Kenya Mashinani's comment, anauliza, what's the secret gluing the four of you for the last 10 years in a busy life of America, keeping this media space going without financial or sponsorship? I think Mkenya is volunteering here.
Sisi ni mabeste.
We actually like each
other.
Hiyo
ndio kitu watu wajuangi that cinema best first.
Yeah, we get along.
We care about each other.
We get along. We care about each other.
Like we are family friends.
Yes.
We are family. Friends. Now everything else that happens after that then is the business.
It's the
business. It's the business of life, I guess is what I would call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good question.
Yes,
wow.
that's a good question, and I think because kuna watu who like unasikia we went into a partnership or went into this thing together tukakosana. But I think one thing that people always need to value when you have a good relationship, when you've had a good relationship with someone, do not allow pesa ama like a superficial thing.
Ama mtu
Yeah.
aingie ndani.
Whenever you see not ati hatupatagi opportunities za kukwaruzana hapa na pale.
Tunakwaruzana.
But I think at the most basic, hata tukikwaruzana, I know deep down Omosh did not say that in a malicious way.
We mean well. We mean
Hata
well with each other.
hata tukigombana, we love each other. You know
Yes,
what I'm
correct. Yes,
saying?
yes. We
Like,
mean
see,
well
we
with
care,
each other.
we
yeah.
care about each other.
Yes.
And you know,
Maybe at the worst, the one thing I'll ask them is, are you okay? Before I ask anything else. Like if they are not fine, then siko sawa, and everything else will not go the way it is. Hiyo ndio kitu watu wengi. So the thing is, for us is like we are genuinely friends. We care about each other.
and you know, this is something we have to be grateful for, because
Wow.
we live in a world, we sometimes never stop to think about it. We live in a world of very transactional relationships.
Yeah.
Like transactional, sometimes it's not even money. It's kind of like, oh, nataka kujuana na Ali because I think anaweza kuniconnect na hii na hii na hii. Nataka kujuana na fulani. And then you notice sometimes when you assist people, like especially, and I know hapa sasa Washeke na Tabitha watanigonga because they're telling me I'm supposed to be making money. Like when you assist someone, akona issue, maybe a question on either finances or nini, and you genuinely help someone. Do you know sometimes people are like, yani mtu amenisaidia tu,
Wacha
no
nikwambie.
strings attached.
Hawa wawili umesema ni nani na nani?
Washeke na Tabitha.
Ni wa Kikuyu.
Okay. I did not say that. It is
Ameguza nini?
ameguza Murima.
Okay.
Mimi ni Murima pia.
But yeye ni Murima. Lakini ameguza Murima.
It's okay because we
What-
just wanted
yeah.
it on paper. Ndio isisemekane
On paper, on air.
Yes. No, on paper paper is the best.
Mugikuyu.
Wacha nikwambie uguze mlima.
Yeah.
Ruto alikojolea mlima.
Okay, but
Boss.
wachane
Hey!
hey mazee mbona why
Mika.
bring in Ruto?
Gaze,
Why
gaze.
bring in Ruto?
We.
Yeah.
Si ati alikojolea peke yake.
Yeah.
Aliharia Murima.
Okay.
He
Haya.
went full throttle.
Yeah, wacha hiyo hapo.
Siothe.
Hiyo tuongea baadaye. But I think back to this issue of relationships, I think with the different backgrounds that we have, I think each different culture has its own unique strengths and its own unique challenges. One of the challenge from the culture I come from, tuko na hiyo kusaidiana sana to your own detriment sometimes, whereby you're engaging in an activity where at this point you're supposed to be making money, but in your mind you're like, oh, wacha nimsaidie tu. Then unaona saa kama hiyo situation ya Murima, whereby there's so much, like emphasis on entrepreneurship.
You are the last party in the conference.
There's so much emphasis on entrepreneurship, whereby hata vitu zingine you're not supposed to be making money on, but unaona opportunity.
And the good thing that I've learned, let me say this, watu wa Murima saa zingine tunakuanga na kashida, and sometimes it's not all of them, by the way. It's not all, just a few. Programming has it that, let me see what I can get, let me maximize as much as I can. However, culturally, there are some instances where there are certain things that you're not that you're prohibited from doing. You just know, don't do this because this thing can come.
Yeah, it can come back and bite you.
And you'll find that even if in certain instances, whatever is happening in a family, the questions start being asked: is there something that was done that was wrong?
Yes.
Alafu wanaanza kufanya utafiti, wanaanza kufanya
investigation,
for forensic audit.
Wanapiga jicho pevu.
Wanapiga, wanatafuta, over here.
Alimdhulumu mtu.
Whatever happened.
Yeah.
So something has to be so people go, you find out what should we do, then you're told kuna mutarata.
Ama maybe they unjustly took inheritance.
Something, whatever it is.
Wealth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do this. Or like if let's say a great-great-grandfather said or grandmother said this is not supposed to happen, but somebody went and did.
Yeah.
And then now it becomes a problem. And then once that is corrected, however, whatever the requirement is to correct, mambo inakuwa poa.
Yeah.
Unaget?
Yes.
So there are those who don't care, but then there are also certain rules of engagement that we live by.
Yes,
in as much
absolutely.
as, unaget, in as much, and this just, I don't know about other places, but even with Cukes, there are certain things, and I've learned this because of sitting down with elders, with people in the career, in the farmo, and situations are happening, and like let's investigate. Let us look at something. If there's nothing, then we find a way to go forward. So there are guardrails that help, in as much as we are confined to that, looking for chums.
Yeah.
But
kuna limits.
Kuna limits also.
Yeah.
Kuna limits, like don't do this because your lineage down the line is gonna get affected. Yes, it can be affected negatively.
Yeah.
And it is because of your greed.
So unaona kama sisi, one of the guardrails in a lot of communities that practice Islam, one of the guardrails is you cannot engage in a business even if it's profiting you that's negatively affecting the community.
Unakumbuka ile siku tulikuwa tunapiga story nikawaambia, lakini muka hivi nafikiria vile Fadhi alikuwa na kijob gava, mbona kukua mwizi? And then Ali akaniambia lakini unafaa kukuwa grateful. Angalia pale mko sahi compare na kina nani.
You'd be looking
mwenye baba yake alikuwa like
you'd be looking over your shoulder. And it would have been a war once, unfortunately, the parents were gone. You guys would be vutanaring shingo.
Mungekosana na brothers. Unaona vile you have a very good relationship with your brothers. Hiyo kitu ingewakosanisha. I mean, we've seen a lot of cases, even in the news in Kenya, whereby watu ni mandugu, lakini now wameanza kuchinjana. Or they're not talking to each other because of mali. Because of hella. Yeah. So your kitu, you have to be very careful, because that can separate, it can separate a family and for good.
I know we have another caller. Oh, the caller's hung up. But what I wanted to say, what also for that long, however long, it's not even just 10 years, it's plus that. It's the engagement and learning from, let's say, Ali. And learning the Muslim way and how to and how your belief, your religious belief, shapes how you think, how you process, how you interact
with finances,
how you manage, and especially like with finances. And that now for me, I'm like, okay, this is interesting, because I have one way of thinking. I had one way of thinking, but now this is somebody's introducing me to another way,
a
and
whole
I'm like,
different way.
A whole different way, and it's like, be grateful. And then I have to give a shout out to my brother Dombolo. If there's somebody who is selfless, is that guy. There's nothing about greed within him. So I have this Murima guy, then I've got my Muslim brother over here. And I'm like, okay, if this guy is doing this and this guy is doing this, so there's a relationship. So it also, and by the way, my daughter, what did she tell me when we came for? What did she?
She wants. Anataka kuingia mambo ya stocks. Which is very good.
At 13.
If she's starting at 13.
Yes.
By the time,
like, Uncle Ali, I want Uncle Ali, and so they even had a conversation. And I'm like,
it already shows the way.
That day. Jerry,
and by the way, that means she's paying attention to some of the things that we are talking about. As much as we think kids are not listening. And she told me, alikuja straight kwangu, like na.
She did a beeline direct to you.
Yes, direct.
She came to this guy.
Yes, and and that's something. It would be good to start it at this stage, whereby by the time Anafika 21, she'll be very skilled in understanding, like the gravity of money. Like
just to understand.
Yes, just to understand it. Because ukiungua at age 14, 15, those are lessons you're learning very early.
Because almost think about it. Why would I not want to go to a place whose religious foundation prevents them from gorging me interest-wise?
So now
think about that. And I mean, and
so interest actually is a very small part.
It's a small part.
But I think it's larger than life, because people get very shocked. Interest. Kwa nini utaki interest?
Exactly.
So people get very shocked.
So think
but
about
there's
that.
reasoning
when
Yeah.
you're being charged what do you 10, 6, 7% or whatever, but here you're being told maybe 0.1 or 1%, whatever the percentage is.
Yeah.
And a guy doesn't want to hammerage you. Why would you not want to be in there? Because you know very well that the foundations have formatted or have created individuals who are genuine when it comes to biashara. They're not trying to milk you. They're not trying to gorge you. All they're saying is, give us kitu kidogo, but
Yes.
we'll give you something that
Or
will benefit.
rather rather than loan you money, let's get into a partnership.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get into a partnership where hauna pesa, I have the money.
Exactly.
Let's sign an agreement. Whatever agreement we sign, let's get into a partnership.
Someone like me, I'll be
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'll open a bank account. If I have to open a bank account, okay, let's do this and let's do this. Because guess what? I can finance my house. I can finance something.
And-
Na tunakubaliana.
And now you see within our Muslim cultures, so there's certain things, even the different communities, you'll find Waswahili, for example, hiyo part ya biashara is not as emphasized because there's a whole segment on business transactions in Islam, and there's very thick books about it. The basics are out there, but now you see the people who one of the Muslim communities that is implementing those rules on biashara ni Wasomali. Sasa kama sisi like a lot of other like Waswahili, for example, that's a part that we've not gotten so into it like Wasomalis have.
Right.
And of course you're seeing the results with all these profits they're making in all these businesses that they're doing. As long as there's no injustice in whatever you're doing.
Why not?
And injustice could be, like gorging someone.
Yes.
Injustice could be, telling someone. It could be something as simple, telling someone, hii hapa, whatever is in this cup is 2 liters, when actually it's 1.9 liters. In fact, that is very,
madogo than
very,
yo.
that right there is
Exactly.
very, very dangerous.
Yes.
Hii hapo is something that we try to stay away from. It could be, it's sometimes very simple things whereby you're told you'd rather sell it more expensive, but tell someone the truth. Take it to see 2 liters, it's 1.9 liters.
And that is I'm going back to answer the guy who was asking about us knowing each other for that long.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things. That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
So I find myself secure in this environment
Absolutely.
with my brothers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And dealing with family and stuff, because 10 years is a long time.
It's more than 10 years, by the way.
More than 10 years.
It's more 10 years ni hapa Kilimanjaro.
It's from 2008.
If you count from Matchbox,
Actually, it's
from
about 2010.
if you count from Matchbox, from
Is it
Mex,
2010.
yeah, 2010. So we are talking 15 years. Yeah.
And by the way, we're going to be putting up our Cash App handle and our Zelle.
Mwanze kutulipa sasa.
Mwanze kuweka
Hiyo 15 years tukicalculate hizo hours zote.
OneMicShow@gmail.com is
Yeah.
our Zelle account.
Yeah.
Na nimeweka huko.
Tukicalculate hizo hours zote. Do you know how many frotis those could be? Maguta.